For a split second, I honestly thought I'd wandered straight into some twisted nightmare, because there's just no preparing for the sight of your own child sitting there in the driveway. Knees drawn up, tiny hands covering her face, tears streaking down what was left of her cheeks, and her beautiful brown hair, the stuff she used to toss over her shoulder and giggle about. Shaved clean off, like someone just erased a piece of her childhood right there on the pavement. I couldn't breathe. I stood there, not sure if my heart had just stopped or if time itself had. Because scattered all over the concrete were locks of her hair and a pair of electric clippers left behind like evidence at a crime scene. For a second, I thought maybe there was a rational explanation, maybe some accident, some misunderstanding, but then I saw it, the unmistakable smugness from across the street, and suddenly all the dots connected in my mind. Karen, I should have known. Yeah, that happened, and let me tell you, there's no prepping for the kind of anger that comes when you realize somebody has crossed a line you never thought anyone would even approach, let alone trample. But you know what? Let's back up a second, because this little slice of suburban chaos didn't just show up out of nowhere. It started on a random Friday afternoon. I was just winding down after work, lounging in the living room while my daughter Sandra made her dolls put on what I'm sure was their 20th off-key concert of the week, and for a minute, peace actually felt like it might stick around for once. That was until the banging started outside. Not the wind. No, this was deliberate, sharp, stone after stone smacking against my front door like someone was testing how many hits it would take to break it down. I jumped up, flung the door open, and what do I see? Karen's kid, Dylan, out there treating my front yard like his personal batting cage. Before I can even say a word, he misses the door and takes a chunk out of the side of my car. Brand new, 2 weeks off the lot, still had that fresh car smell. I lost it. Hey, are you out of your mind? I yell, marching right toward him. He freezes, stone in hand, looking like he just realized the monsters under the bed were real, and one of them was me. I wanted to drag him right over to his mother, but instead, I just pointed at my car, kept it together, and told him, "You pull that stunt again, your mom's gonna pay for the damage." He dropped the rock and bolted. And here's the thing, I almost let it go. Just a dumb kid, I told myself. Didn't know any better. What I didn't know was that, by letting him off the hook, I'd just handed his mother the ammo she needed to kick off a war I never signed up for. Not even an hour later, somebody starts pounding on my front door like the place is on fire. I open it, and there she is, Karen, in all her furious, floral-robed, sunglasses at sunset glory. She doesn't bother with hello. "Why did you hit my son?" she screams, finger nearly poking my eye out. For a second, I wonder if I heard her right. "What are you talking about? I didn't touch him," I say, still trying to process how he got here. But she's not having it. She's on a roll, claims her boy came home with bruises, accuses me of assault, practically frothing at the mouth. I try to keep it together, explain that her son was vandalizing my property, that all I did was yell, but it's like talking to a brick wall. She doubles down, swears I'll regret ever yelling at her precious boy, and storms off, hurling threats over her shoulder. Greg, my neighbor, tries to step in, says he saw the whole thing, and backs me up, but Karen just tells him to mind his business. You know the type, some folks get a whiff of HOA authority and suddenly think they're the sheriff in town. After she storms off, I can't shake the feeling this isn't over. I've seen her kind before. She wears her HOA badge like a crown and expects everyone to bow. Only this time, she picked the wrong person to mess with. So a week goes by, and Sandra's got a play date with Greg's son. She's been talking about it nonstop, dressing her dolls for the occasion like it's some royal wedding. I'm supposed to pick her up after work. Text Greg that I'm on my way, thinking everything's normal. But as I pull into the driveway, I see her sitting there, alone, sobbing, head shaved bare. For a moment, I think maybe it's a prank. Maybe some weird dare gone wrong. But then I run to her, and she collapses into my arms, trembling. Through her tears, she tells me, "Miss Karen did it." That's when everything inside me went nuclear. Apparently, Karen showed up at Greg's house, told him I'd sent her because there was an emergency, and Sandra needed to come with her immediately. Greg just thought she was doing me a favor. He had no idea what she was planning. You could see the guilt on his face as I told him what happened, but honestly, all I could think about was Karen and how I was going to make damn sure she paid for what she'd done. I stormed over to her house, each step fueled by the kind of anger you don't just talk your way out of. She opened the door with that same smug grin, arms folded like she's the victim. "You shaved my daughter's head?" I asked, barely keeping it together. She just sneered, told me maybe next time I'd think twice before yelling at her son. It took everything in me not to lose it right then and there. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called the cops. When they showed up, lights flashing and neighbors peeking out from behind curtains, Karen flipped from smug to sweet, telling the officers I was harassing her. But the moment I showed them Sandra's shaved head, the trembling in her little body, the whole mood shifted. The officers asked Karen to step outside, and as she started ranting and raving, they slapped the cuffs on her right there on her own porch while everyone watched. I pressed every charge you can think of: child battery, emotional abuse, harassment, the works. She tried to spin it, saying she was just retaliating for what I'd supposedly done to her son, but then the detectives checked my porch camera footage. Turns out, that camera caught everything: the rock throwing, me yelling, but not even a hint of physical contact. Karen's story unraveled in seconds. She went down hard, convicted of child battery and emotional distress. 3 years in prison, a mountain of fines, civil damages that forced her to sell her house, and she got kicked off the HOA board for good measure. By the time she got out, she was a ghost in the neighborhood. No friends, no house, and absolutely no power left to swing around. I know it sounds harsh, but there's something deeply satisfying about watching justice serve. It's ice cold, especially when it's been a long time coming. And yet, every time I see my daughter playing in the yard, hair growing back a little more each week, I still wonder, did I do the right thing? Or did we just sink to her level in the end? So what do you think? Was Karen's punishment enough, or did it go too far? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, because out here, everyone's got their own idea of justice, and I want to hear yours. That you'd think after a showdown like that, life would finally settle back into something resembling normal, right? Yeah, not quite. Because out here in suburbia, folks have a way of clinging to the last shreds of drama, even when the curtains already come down. I thought the hard part was over once Karen was locked away. But turns out, her influence stretched further than I ever expected. Some scars just run deeper than a simple apology or a court ruling can fix. For a while, it did feel a little easier. Sandra was slowly starting to smile again. You know, the kind of smile that comes from genuine peace instead of putting on a brave face. Her hair began to grow back, wild and curly as ever, and every inch of it was like a little victory against what Karen had done. Greg, my neighbor, came over more often, always with some fresh-baked banana bread or stories about his own childhood misadventures, like he was trying to patch up a friendship that Karen's mess had nearly ruined. There was a quiet understanding between us. He still carried a load of guilt for trusting the wrong person, and I carried my own regrets about how quickly things spun out of control. But if there's one thing I learned, it's that people like Karen never truly disappear, even from behind bars. She managed to stir the pot. Her old crew on the HOA board, Marisol, Cheryl, a couple others who always had her back no matter how wild she got, started up a rumor mill that would put TMZ to shame. Suddenly, I was the villain in a dozen news stories. They said I'd bullied Karen for years, that I'd set her up, that Sandra's shaved head was some scheme for sympathy. Ridiculous stuff. But in neighborhoods like ours, it doesn't take much to get people whispering over the hedges. That's when the real twist hit, one I honestly never saw coming. Out of nowhere, a letter showed up in my mailbox, no return address, just my name scribbled in a shaky hand. I almost tossed it, thinking it was another HOA notice or a leftover threat, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single photograph, an old one, yellowed at the edges, showing Karen as a little girl, sitting alone on the curb with her own hair hacked off in jagged patches, her face a mirror of Sandra's heartbreak. On the back, written in the same shaky hand, history repeats itself. Sorry. For a long minute, I just stood there, the whole world going quiet. It hit me, whatever darkness Karen carried, it didn't start with me. Maybe it didn't even start with her. Hurt people, hurt people. That's the phrase that kept rolling around in my head. I'm not saying it excused what she did. Not even close. But it made the whole mess feel heavier, more complicated. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a villain and a victim. It was about cycles, scars that never healed. and the danger of letting old wounds fester. I kept the photo. Didn't show it to Sandra, didn't show it to the neighbors, just tucked it away in my desk like a reminder. Meanwhile, the fallout kept coming. HOA board meetings turned toxic, with Marisol gunning for my spot, trying to paint me as some sort of neighborhood menace. One evening, she marched right up to my door with a stack of fake complaints: grass too long, dog too loud, mailbox crooked, you name it. I half expected a SWAT team to pop out of the bushes. Instead of losing my cool this time, I decided to play it different. I showed up to the next HOA meeting, brought Sandra with me, her head held high, curly hair sprouting defiantly, and I let the board read out their list of accusations. Then, for the first time, I spoke, not in anger, not with threats, but with the truth. I told the whole story, no yelling, no blame, just the facts and what it cost my family. I talked about the photo, about cycles and choices, and asked everyone in that room if they were really okay with turning neighbor against neighbor over rumors and pride. There was this long, awkward silence. You could feel the tension, like the whole room was holding its breath. Finally, Greg stood up, cleared his throat, and backed me up. Then Cheryl, of all people, actually apologized for fueling the drama. The vote went my way, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe the tide was turning, even just a little. Of course, not everyone was happy. Marisol stormed out, swearing she'd call the county, the news, anyone who'd listen. But most folks just sat there, thoughtful, maybe realizing how close we all came to tearing each other apart over something that never should have happened in the first place. Sandra still asks about Karen sometimes. Kids don't always understand why adults do what they do. I tell her the truth, that people make mistakes, that some scars take longer to heal, and that forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. Our life didn't go back to exactly how it was, but maybe that's okay. Maybe the best thing we can do is just keep moving forward, loving a little harder, and not letting old bitterness decide who we become. So now it's your turn. What would you have done, honestly? Would you forgive, or would you fight back harder? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because if there's one thing I know, it's that every community has its own battles, and sometimes the real story is about how we choose to heal after the storm.